the Galaxy A52 is the successor to the best-selling Android phone out there. But is it even possible to fill those footsteps? Hey, I'm Brian and I spent 1 month with it to find out. I am actually a fan of the design of the A52. It's nice to have some color, and this light blue definitely gets my approval. You should know that this is already quite a big phone though. 6.5 inches is the same size as an iPhone Max. So if you're considering the A72, bear that in mind. I generally don't have a problem with it being fully made from plastic if that does help Samsung to save money for a better feature set. And plastic doesn't have to mean poor build quality. I have definitely had phones here before that felt sturdy even though they were made from plastic. Unfortunately, the A52 does lose some points here. The back has a slightly hollow sound to it and does have some give when pressing on it. At least the matte finish doesn't catch any fingerprints, and the camera bump is also not too thick and well integrated. The buttons are clicky, no complaints there. The phone is also fully IP67 water resistant, which I think is a really nice touch at this price point. It means that even when buying a cheaper phone, you don't have to be worried about getting caught in the rain or leaving it next to the pool anymore. The vibration motor is another negative point. There are better ones even at this price point. Instead of feeling more like a tap, it still has that cheap rattly feel to it. One design touch I also don't quite understand is the silver ring around the selfie camera. Probably to not have it look too premium when compared to Galaxy S21. And I guess that also brings us pretty well into the display is definitely the main attraction on this phone, as was already the case on the A51. It's a really great screen for the price, and I also think that makes sense given that it's the thing that people mainly interact with, also in the store before buying. It's plenty sharp at 1080p, and the colors are top-notch thanks to Samsung being an expert in OLED panels. This is a screen that wouldn't feel out of place even on phones that are twice as expensive. That is also because it's very bright at 800 nits, and on the 5G model it runs at 120 Hz. That's pretty incredible and definitely not common at 400 euros. It makes the interface feel way smoother than a 60Hz screen and is a nice touch to make a mid-range phone feel snappier than it actually is. The regular A52 only has a 90Hz panel, but the difference is probably not so large that it's a thing that should make you spend more money by itself. Anything above 60 is already a win. Together with the stereo speakers, which are pretty loud, the media experience on this phone is pretty incredible. Even if the top speaker is a bit quieter than the bottom one. And when you don't want to use those speakers, it even still has a headphone jack. As I said, thanks to that high refresh rate, the interface does feel pretty smooth, especially when scrolling. The Snapdragon 750G does sometimes also struggle with some micro jitter though, which has me a bit worried about the slower chip in the non-5G version. Those stutters were especially prevalent when setting the phone up. After a while it got better, but especially the app switcher still isn't fully smooth. I have a feeling that this is a software thing. Apps are kept open forever though, so RAM management is definitely very good. They also launch fast and there are no wait times. You can get the A52 5G with either 6GB of RAM and 128GB of storage, or 8GB of RAM and 256GB of storage. And if that's not enough for you, there's also a microSD card slot. If you do use that though, you do lose dual SIM functionality. Speaking of SIM cards, this is of course the version of the phone that does support 5G. Whether or not this is a factor for you of course depends on where you live, but with the size of 5G networks expanding so rapidly, it might be a good idea to go for it now to be a little bit more future-proof if you want to keep the phone for a couple years. I would also really recommend looking at a 5G coverage map for this, because you might already have 5G in your area without knowing it when you still have a 4G phone. Together with the faster CPU, slightly more RAM and the faster screen, the 5G version of the phone actually seems like a compelling upgrade to me. But even if you go for the non-5G version, you still get a good value. The optical fingerprint sensor is not the best one I've ever used. It's fast when it works, but it misreads my finger pretty frequently, which can get annoying. There is also face unlock to make up for that though. I do have to applaud Samsung for really committing to software updates even for more affordable phones. 3 years of new Android updates and 4 years of security updates is basically like setting a new standard. Most competing manufacturers, sometimes even with their high-end phones, only provide one software update, maybe 2 if you're lucky. Updates are really important to keep a phone running smooth and secure, and when you're planning to keep your phone for more than 2 years, the Samsung A series is basically in a class of its own now. Apart from updates, One UI still isn't my favorite interface, as there are still some duplicate apps, and they try to push you into using their services instead of Google's. But it's now pretty good looking with useful features, and with a third-party launcher you can change the look to your liking anyway. On the back you have a 64MP main camera that's your standard pixel binning affair, and that is paired with a 12MP wide angle. And then there are 2 utterly useless ones that I'm just going to skip over. Unfortunately, there's no zoom. The main camera does have OIS, which is great for getting sharp images even in poor lighting, and also to keep the 4K video recording steady. Definitely not common at this price point and a nice addition. In good light, the camera produces some good shots in general. I do think that most people will like the look as it's great for social media, but it's not very natural. Colors are very saturated, especially skies are extremely blue, actually unnaturally so. And it also tends to keep the images very bright, leading to some overexposure. That said, dynamic range is actually really good, as even dark areas don't lose much detail. What I also noticed is that the color temperature of the main camera is very warm. That's especially noticeable because the ultrawide camera has a much cooler look, which makes the pictures from both look very different. The ultrawide is also significantly less capable than the main camera in terms of dynamic range. Shadows are crushed much easier. That said, it's still nice to have and can get you some good shots in good lighting. The night mode is good on both cameras and does punch way above its weight class. The pictures are sharp and well lit. Colors are also preserved well. It even does a good job when compared to the new iPhones. That's really good to see and does make it stand out. The difference in color temperature between the cameras does become especially noticeable at night though. Selfies are okay, I think the pictures do have a bit too much contrast. Overall, I'm pretty happy with this camera. It's not a Pixel 4a 5G because the look is a bit too unnatural, but it's capable and the night mode is quite extraordinary. Definitely among the better cameras for this price. Battery life is good, but nothing special. I get about 5.5 hours of screen on time with my usage without gaming. That's a bit better than the OnePlus Nord or a Pixel 4a for example, but not by much. It's definitely enough to get you through the day, with maybe about 30% left at the end of it. The phone does support 25W fast charging, which is nice, but they only bundle a 15W brick in the box. I guess these days we have to be happy with everything that we can get. With that it takes about 1.5 hours to charge, which won't really make it win any speed awards. And there's no wireless charging, of course. Yes, this phone isn't perfect and does have some shortcomings. The build quality isn't that premium and the fingerprint sensor isn't that reliable. But these are all minor things, and since most people will probably put their phone in a case, the build quality aspect doesn't even really matter. What you get for the price is an extremely well-rounded package with things you usually only find in much higher-end phones. You get an amazing screen, a capable camera, pretty good performance and 5G, and that is paired with water resistance and 4 years of software updates, which is just unheard of at this price point. And there are no glaring omissions with the headphone jack and expandable storage either. I think Samsung did realize what they had with the Galaxy A51, and did actually succeed at making that even better. It's really hard to beat for the price, especially if you want something that's reliable and that will last you for a long time. If it becomes a bestseller again, then that is definitely deserved, but also know that there are other options if you want a better camera or a better performance. If you enjoyed this video, you know which buttons to press. Don't forget to press that follow button on Twitter, and don't forget your mask when you leave the house. I'm Brian, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.